All right, today we're diving into the neuroscience of attachment. We're going to talk about those powerful, kind of invisible forces in our brains and our bodies that are pulling the strings on who we love and why.
Okay, so have you ever had that feeling? You meet someone, and the connection is just electric. So intense, so fast, you're absolutely sure this is my soulmate. But what if I told you that intense pull isn't love at all? What if it's actually your nervous system just caught in an old survival loop?
It's this huge myth that so many of us buy into. We're taught that love is supposed to be this crazy, chaotic whirlwind, that all that anxiety and those stomach-flipping butterflies, that's the sign, right? That's proof of real chemistry.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to challenge today. Because real, steady, stable love, it runs on a completely different biological operating system than that chaotic attraction so many of us find ourselves chasing.
So to get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with brain chemistry. And this is fascinating, because your brain can become literally addicted to the emotional highs and lows of an unstable relationship.
The key mechanism here has a bit of a technical name, intermittent reinforcement. But the idea is simple. It all comes down to dopamine, our brain's reward chemical. And here's the crazy part. You don't get the biggest dopamine hit when a reward is guaranteed. Nope. The biggest spike happens when the reward is a surprise.
Think about it like this. It's the exact same thing that makes gambling so addictive, right? You're not pulling the lever on a slot machine because you know you're going to win. You're pulling it because you might. It's that maybe, that randomness that keeps you glued to the seat, just chasing that potential win.
And in relationships, this plays out as a really painful cycle. You get affection, and then it's pulled away. You get praise, and then you get criticism. Your brain has no idea when the good stuff is coming back. So when it finally does, boom. You get this massive dopamine hit. And that's what creates this obsessive, addictive attachment, where you're just always on edge, chasing that unpredictable high.
Okay, this right here really gets to the core of it. On one side, you have that addictive loop we just talked about. That's a trauma bond. It's all about dopamine, it's fueled by unpredictability, and it feels like a constant state of anxiety followed by relief. But healthy love, that's a whole different ballgame. It's based on oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It's fueled by consistency, and it feels calm. It feels safe.
And this is so important to understand. If you've spent your life on that dopamine roller coaster, the calm of a stable oxytocin-based relationship can feel boring. A lot of people think, oh no, the chemistry is gone. But what actually disappeared wasn't the chemistry, it was the stress.
And it's not just what's happening up in your brain either. Your whole body gets in on the act. It gets caught in this kind of false alarm, sending out these really powerful signals that your mind can easily mistake for passion.
So there's this classic psychology concept called the misattribution of arousal. Check this out. In a famous study, they had men walk across two different bridges. One was a super high, wobbly, scary bridge. The other was low and stable. The men who crossed the scary bridge were way more likely to say they were attracted to the female researcher they met at the end. Why? Their hearts were pounding from fear, but their brains misinterpreted that physical feeling as romantic attraction. Crazy, right?
And this just hits so hard. Think about it. If you grew up in a chaotic home, your nervous system literally learned that chaos is normal. So when a partner comes along and creates that same kind of tension, that same up and down feeling, your body doesn't sound the danger alarm. Instead, it goes, oh, this feels like home. Not because it's healthy, but just because it's familiar.
A really helpful way to picture this is with something called the window of tolerance. So, in a chaotic relationship, you're constantly getting shoved above this window. You're living in a state of hyperarousal. That's the constant buzzing anxiety, the jealousy, the panic attacks. It's basically being stuck in fight or flight mode.
Now, the whole point of a healthy relationship is to spend most of your time inside that window. That's your regulated zone. It's where you feel calm, you feel stable, and you can actually think clearly. It's the only place where real communication and connection can even happen.
But there's another side to it too. Sometimes the stress is just too much, and your system just shuts down. You get pushed below the window into what's called hypoarousal. This is when you feel numb, you withdraw, you're just totally checked out emotionally. And here's the thing about trauma bonds. They swing you violently back and forth between these two extremes, way too high and then way too low. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? What does the actual blueprint for a healthy connection, one built on safety, not just survival, even look like?
Well, it's not about the big, dramatic, movie-style gestures. Real love, real intimacy is built in the small moments. It's built through the quiet, consistent repetition of safe behaviors. A healthy partner is someone who keeps their word. They respect your boundaries. They know how to repair things after an argument. And, really importantly, they stay consistent even when life gets hard.
And let's just be really honest here. Making this shift is tough. When you get off that roller coaster, solid ground can feel really weird, maybe even a little boring at first. But it is so important to understand that this feeling is not a red flag. It's not a sign that the connection is bad. It's a sign that your nervous system is finally healing and recalibrating to what safety actually feels like.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important point. Real growth here is all about making a conscious choice. It's about choosing regulation over activation, choosing peace over what you thought was passion.
Yeah, this slide really says it all. The old question we used to ask was all about intensity. How strong is the spark? How much drama is there? But the mature, self-aware question is completely different. It's, how does my body feel around this person? Do I feel regulated? Do I feel calm? Can I actually be myself without being afraid?
Here's a really simple but deep way to tell the difference. That dopamine-driven trauma bond feels urgent. It feels like you have to lock it down right now or it's going to disappear. But that oxytocin-based love, it's not in a hurry. It has time. It knows that real connection is built slowly, one consistent action at a time.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. True emotional maturity isn't about chasing the biggest, most explosive spark. It's about having the wisdom and the self-respect to know when that spark is actually a warning fire. And then having the strength to choose your own peace, your own stability over everything else.
So we want to leave you with this one last thought. Your nervous system is wired for survival first and foremost. And for survival, familiar always feels safe, even when what's familiar is total chaos. But you have a choice. You can learn to listen in a new way, not just for the loud pull of familiarity, but for the quiet, steady hum of genuine safety. So the real question is, which one will you choose to call love?